Is it too late to save your relationship if your spouse wants a divorce? Well, I'm one of those psychologists who always thinks there's hope, but in my over 30 years of experience, I've found 4 things, I call them the 4 C's, that often spell the end of a relationship. So if you have one or more of these, it might be too late to save your relationship. But stay until the end, because I'm also going to tell you the one thing you need to know and the one thing you can do to have the best chance of turning your relationship around. I put out new videos every week, so make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. Let's get to it. So the first C is commitment elsewhere. If your spouse is fully committed to another person, it might be too late. I'm talking about if your spouse is leaving you to be with someone else, if they're planning to move in with that person, if they have a child with them or planning a child. Your spouse having an affair or cheating on you does not equal a commitment to someone else. I'm talking about a situation where your spouse is planning to make this person, the other person, their permanent person, so not a fling. If that's happening, there's definitely some trouble. All right. The second C is contact. And basically, if there's no contact at all, you can't do what's needed to make the relationship work. If you're living apart, to try out, living separately, but don't have any time together, you can't work on things. Or if you live together but never see each other, if you're avoiding each other at all costs, it's a problem. You've got to spend time together if you want things to work. I know it seems obvious, but people miss this. And I'm not talking about those big date nights. And I want to be really clear. It's just the opposite. So I'm not saying once a week go out on a date with your spouse. I'm talking about the daily interactions where you can build connection. These are called micro connections, and they absolutely make or break relationships. I say all the time that great relationships aren't built in a day. Great relationships are built daily. Now, if you want to learn more about creating those micro connections, I have a video on that, so I'll link to that below to help you out. All right, and let me know in the comments what you're struggling the most with right now in your relationship. I'd love to hear that. And I really will do my best to get a video out there to help you move through it. So let me know. All right, let's get to the third C. So the third C is contempt. And there's a famous marriage researcher in New York, Dr. John Gottman and his wife, and they've been doing studying couples in their marriage lab for decades. And what they found, and listen up, is that contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. And contempt isn't just criticism. This is something deeper. Criticism attacks your character. Contempt is all about your partner actually feeling superior to you. Contempt isn't just, an exasperated partner saying they're sick of something you're doing. Contempt is really, it's mean. If your partner has been treating you with disrespect, is continually sarcastic, if they ridicule you, mock you, call you names, or if you're getting those eye rolls, you're in some trouble here. And if you feel worthless or detested in your relationship, then contempt has entered the house and you might have some trouble moving past it. All right. The fourth and final C is confusion, and mainly, I don't want you to confuse words and action. Your partner telling you they want a divorce is one thing, but what action have they taken? Have they met with a lawyer, moved out, frozen your bank accounts? The more action they've already taken, the worse off the situation is. But if they're just giving you the words, even if they've been doing that for a really long time, but they haven't actually done anything about it, you're better off than you think. By giving you these warnings, your partner's telling you they're looking for you to do something to make them feel better and more connected so they can stay in the marriage. It's really what they're doing. It's kind of like a dog growling at you before it bites you. The warning is there. Now, what are you going to do with it? So don't be confused if they're sort of saying, this one thing, but then nothing is happening. Look, those actions are what's really important. But do take it as the warning that it is. Now, in general, if you want to learn more about whether or not your relationship is worth saving, I actually did a whole video on that with very different information. So I'll link to that below as everything else. All right. Now, let me get to the good stuff. I'm someone who has seen major miracles happen in relationships. I've been doing this a really long time. So I want to leave you with the number one thing you need to know and the number one thing you can do if you're intent on turning this relationship around. All right. So the number one thing you need to know is this. The one in the most pain needs to change first. So if you're watching this and your partner's not, then you're the one in the most pain. If your partner is walking out the door and you don't want them to, then you're the one in the most pain and you need to start making changes first. Again, even if they've been complaining, even if they've been telling you that they're miserable, believe it or not, you're the one in the most pain. So it's time to stop focusing on them and what they're doing and focus completely on you and what you're doing. And I know it can be really hard to stop focusing on your spouse. So I do have a video for what to do if you're focused on your partner. And I'll link that below also because, that can be really helpful. So, all right, so that's that number one thing you need to know. And then now let's talk about the number one thing you can do to turn your relationship around. And it's simple, but it's not often easy. And so it's this. Basically, you need to connect before you correct. And so many couples, they're looking to fix problems, but there's no connection. So your partner isn't going to be motivated to work on anything without the connection first. Think about it. For what? For you to nag them? For you to be cold, withholding? Why bother, right? Or to just feel like this relationship has nothing, or you're always upset with them, or they can't do anything right? What you need to do is work on creating connection with your spouse before you try to do any correcting or fixing in the relationship. I do this all the time when I work with couples. I do not jump into problems on those, first sessions at all. I'm working on building communication between the two of them, starting to connect a little bit, those micro connections I mentioned, all that. Again, this really speaks to you working on your micro connections, but you need to start from strengths. You don't build a relationship based on weaknesses. So this means you have to start being the person you want to see in the relationship. It might sound corny, but it's what you got to do. Why would your partner want to come back if you're acting rageful, clinging, critical, right? It's time to be loving, warm, appreciative, open. You really need to create this environment of love. And I know it's hard, but you also can't think to yourself, okay, I'll do this for a week and I'll see if something changes. And if not, I'll go back to the old way, because they will wait you out. And I talk about that in that video, Is Your Relationship Worth Saving? So you've got to be all in with full love and commitment. You have to hold your boundaries, but do it from a loving heart. All right, so if you're ready for even more great information about relationships, check out my Relationships Made Easy podcast. You might not know I have it, but CNBC named us one of the top 10 podcasts you need in your life right now. So you can get the podcast anywhere you download podcasts, or come on over to my website, abbymedcalf.com. That's it for today. I'm Dr. Abby Medcalf. I help people think differently so they can create joy, ease, and connection in every relationship.